So, hello everyone. Sorry for being a bit late. We wanted to thank everyone for joining. And I have here with me Neil Anderson, who is going to begin by showing you some of the new features of Cantemo 6. We will then also discuss different topics with regards to what happens now and how you all can get started. Neil, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, morning everyone. Slides that I'm presenting. So Cantemo 6, very pleased to be able to show you new functionality. Best practices, just a couple of things. If you have questions, to ask them in the chat. And we'll also be sending out some feedback after the webinar as well. Hoping Asmo can join us for this, but this is the agenda for this morning. So we're going to talk through some of the UI updates, some of the UX improvements, and as many of you may know, we've also now included Accurate Player in Cantemo 6, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So UI UX improvements. Let me share my screen and we'll take you through what's changed. So here we go. So Cantemo 6, in terms of look and feel, is quite different from Cantemo 5, as many of you know. So we've taken the Accurate Player SDK, which is our front-end web component library that we've developed over many years, and we've applied that to the front end of Cantemo. So now we have a slightly darker theme. We have a much more responsive UI, being able to adjust the layout. Obviously, we've got the table view and the grid view, as always. But we've changed the way some of the UI interacts as well. So we've got sort of these checkboxes now where you can interact. If you hold down the Shift key, you can do selections like that. And I believe if you have the Command key, yeah, we can also deselect. And you can obviously do that in the list view as well. So being able to navigate around the content is going to be more elegant and more intuitive. So again, if I select and hold down the Shift key here, you can see I can do sort of selections like that. And then with the Command key, I can also deselect as well. So now that I've selected some of these items, you can see I now have my actions buttons here. So we've removed the cog menu and have added these action buttons directly into the UI. So this should make it, again, a little bit easier. The action buttons are much closer to the items themselves. We're not having to navigate across the screen. And as you can see here, I've got various options open to me. So I can add these to my media bin. I can add them to a collection. I can set off a transcode. I can export these. And I can also batch metadata update. And of course, if I have permission, then I can delete those items as well. And from the pip menu, I can also open these up in Accurate Video too. So we'll show you that a little bit later. So in terms of some of those action buttons, you can see now that these are much closer to where things are. And obviously I can deselect and reselect all of those as well. So some of these things are kind of things that we've been wanting to do for a while and change it in terms of changing the layout and changing the interaction patterns for users to make it more intuitive and quicker to navigate around content. And again, as you can see, we've changed the layout of the filters on the left-hand side. So obviously we've got our faceted filters still. So if I want to just show specific video and items, then obviously I can do all of that too, as well as to be able to look under specific types of metadata. So different schemas here. whether I'm looking for particular resolutions and codecs, for example, or durations within certain periods of time, and whether these are static or time-based metadata. So again, the functionality hasn't changed, but the layout is different. And obviously you can see here, I've also got my collections and hierarchies of sub-collections as well to navigate and move content around. So the UI has been updated, but also some UX improvements as well. This becomes even more obvious when I jump into the items page itself. So if we pick out something like Tears of Steel, which I know is an example we all can't stand, but it's a good example because it has quite a lot going on in the way of content. So with the item page, we've also got some big changes. So as you can see, we've changed the layout entirely. So the player is now on the top right-hand corner. Previously, it was on the top left, and static metadata now appears below. Now, what that does is free us up to have more real estate on screen for being able to see some of our different static metadata associated with this asset. So again, this is using Accurate Player, and I'll show you a little bit more of that in a minute. But by redesigning the layout, we give our users more access to the static time-based, static metadata that they would want to work with more easily and more intuitively. And as you can see, the UI is fully responsive. So again, we've got within here, you can see we've got different attributes associated with this item. I've also got some QC metadata, some rights metadata down here as well. So different schemas associated with this item. So that's one of the big changes, is the layout. But we've also removed the icons that appeared up and down the left-hand side of the screen, which you'll be very familiar with on previous iterations of Cantemo. So now we have this tabbed view across the top. You can see I've got all of my thumbnails. And if you weren't aware before, but if I click on any of the time code, it will now take me to that moment in the user interface, which is quite handy. It's a hidden feature previously, but it's now a little bit more obvious in the UI because you can hover over the time code. And again, with my posters, using the camera button, yes, of course, I can generate my posters in the background. And again, the posters that are being created, I can click on the time code and it takes me directly to that location in the player. So again, a little bit more obvious what's going on. Formats tab hasn't specifically changed, but you can see we've got multiple different shapes or multiple different versions of this asset associated with it. The original MXF file, a mezzanine XDCAM file, the proxy that's been generated, a mezzanine MP4, and we've also got multiple audio tracks as well, which I'll show you. Again, the functionality of these hasn't changed, but in terms of the layout, it's just a little bit easier to work with. And again, you can see all of the relevant assets associated with this, and some of the markers, time-based markers that have been added in here as well, which I'll go through a bit later. So that's the sort of the item page changes. And again, one of the big things, of course, now is with Accurate Player, we have a much more sophisticated media player built in. So for example, under the audio tab now, you can see we have support for multiple audio tracks. And within these multiple audio tracks, we've also got multiple channels. So you can see here, I've got a 5.1 layout.
And try that one.
And I can even switch off and isolate individual channels within that track. So that's, again, much more sophisticated audio handling within the user interface and being able to turn these off and on and switch between them. So whether it's a complex audio layout or whether it's multiple languages, being able to individually isolate channels and tracks within the UI is a much more powerful feature. And this is really beneficial for customers working with different languages or advanced audio layouts that they need to be able to check when their content has been ingested. So that's all great. We also have support for multiple subtitles on screen. So again, you can see we've now got the ability to play multiple subtitles at once. This is useful for checking timing of subtitles in particular. So what's important here is when a user has ingested their content, they want to know that all of their subtitles are in sync and if there's a problem with them. So being able to scrub through and check the exact timing is really important. And again, just being able to switch these on and off is much easier in the user interface now. We've also added support for additional subtitle formats. So for example, a number of the broadcast formats used around the world, such as STL in America, SRT, and SCC, and PAC and the CAP subtitle formats. Now, these are all binary subtitle formats, which typically can't be rendered in a web UI. However, we've actually implemented real-time rendering of these formats into Accurate Player. So again, if you're working with broadcast subtitles, these will now play directly in Accurate Player without needing any conversion. But of course, we also support TTML, WebVTT, IMSC 1.1. So some of the more sophisticated and advanced web-compatible subtitle formats, they all play natively in Accurate Player too. So better subtitle handling, more subtitle format support. Again, really reiterating that Cantemo 6 with Accurate Player has got more sophisticated support for those advanced languages, handling and different subtitle formats, different audio layouts as well. And another nice feature of Accurate Player is we have quite a lot of keyboard controls. So the ability to jump through by percentage, for example. So if you're spot checking of content, that's really important. Stepping through by frames or by seconds or by minutes, being able to mute and toggle and change the volume and go to full screen and jumping between in and out points. These are all, and I'm going to mute this because I'm sick of hearing it. But I can also mark an in point and an out point and loop a clip or loop part of this content. And of course, go full screen from the keyboard controls. So all of these sort of more sophisticated, and if I go to press 2 on the keyboard, I'm at 20%. If I press 5, I'm at 50%. So again, being able to do all of these sort of keyboard controls really allows for navigation around the content to be a lot smoother. So that's sort of some of the features of Accurate Player. We also have support for discrete audio. So if I have content that has been ingested, video that's been ingested, and I've got different audio layouts from different sources, I can also play those back at the same time. So being able to mix muxed audio with discrete audio against an asset, as long as they're the same duration, also makes handling of video and audio a lot more sophisticated. And if I have multiple channels of embedded audio, these are all demuxed on the fly in Cantemo and with Accurate Player. So if I need to listen to tracks 3 and 4 within a muxed audio layout, then I can listen to that too. So again, more sophisticated audio handling. If I go back to the main page now, so other things that have changed to the layout, we've also got our history of searches. Now this is in a pop-up and I can search within that. So as you can see, I've done some previous searches for this particular item and that's better laid out. And I've also got my saved searches here too. So if I'm looking for Kung Fury, then I can find those assets very quickly and easily. So the layout and Accurate Player and the UX improvements and the UI changes, but also the way we're handling things like search history and asset history too. So for example, this is the search I created for Kung Fury. But if I wanted to update that, let's call this 2018 for argument's sake, because there's no metadata for 2018, I can update this search perhaps. Let's see, I'm interested in the subclips as well. And now if I want to update my saved search, the next time I do my search, it's going to find not just the items, but also all of the relevant subclips. So again, as you can see, if I go into this, this is my updated saved search. So changing those things is really just sort of making the manageability of content a little bit more intuitive. And I can also save this as a new saved search as well. So if I wanted to change or revert between saved searches, I can do all of that as well. So in a nutshell, those are some of the advanced and updated features of Cantemo 6. There's also, we want to talk a little bit more about, what the future holds for Cantemo as well. So in terms of roadmap, we've got some ideas which we're really interested in getting feedback on from you guys. And obviously, if you have any questions, give us a shout. In terms of availability, Cantemo 6 is now shipping. So we're going to be releasing that. We've just got a landing page to update. So that'll be available later in the week. And you'll be able to then download it, try it out for yourselves and start testing it as well. And of course, giving us feedback because we'll be doing updates in the coming weeks as well to bring out new features and more bug fixes and improvements and things like that. But this isn't the end of Cantemo 6. There will be continuous updates. So, there's more work to do as always, but we're now really pleased to be able to get Cantemo 6 out there for people. I wonder if we've got any questions at the moment.
No questions so far.
Okay.
Asmo joined as well. Do you have any additional information to share?
Yeah, sorry, we had a slight scheduling mess on our end. Sorry about that, so I'm a bit late. Did you talk anything about like the backend stuff, Neil, or you just focused on the fancy new UX?
I always focus on the fancy new UX.
Good,
so
good
yeah,
for you. I mean, I can just
backend stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I can just mention, we worked on the backend, basically upgrading everything we build on, like latest OpenSearch instead of Elasticsearch, latest VDSpine, Django, Celery. No more RabbitMQ for queuing. We use Redis for that. So kind of upgrading and cleaning up the system components that we build on. And we have online licenses now for Cantemo. So that's something when you get the download link, you want to get a new license from us as well. It's going to be basically whenever you renew a license or get new things bought as part of the license, you don't have to get a new key file or anything. We just enable that on the server side. So that's going to help us I guess mostly on the extending you don't have to every year get a new key file. Basically, I'd say that's the main benefit, but there's other benefits that as well. And yeah, I think that's it kind of from the backend side. And as Neil mentioned, I think we're really going to push for the UX more. We have great UXers at Codemill who've been working on this. Now we want to get them more involved with Cantemo customers. That's what we want to work with you guys on, have them actually work with the end users for all those nitty-gritty details of what do people actually do, what's the best approach for the UX. We want to get that ball rolling this year as well.
Can we comment anything on potential future roadmap additions? Neil, Asmo.
Yeah, I mean, IMF has been a topic that's been in discussion for a long time. I think that's something that we've been waiting on accurate player integration with Cantemo in order to be able to start looking at supporting IMF workflows, because IMF is a package containing multiple different items and different audio, different subtitles. It was felt that once we have accurate player in place in Cantemo, it'll be a lot easier to then implement IMF support from a front end point of view. So that's something that we'll be looking at later in the year. If you have customers who are interested in IMF, then we'd love to chat with them. IMF is very much a complex workflow. So it's not just, do you have IMF support, but how do you handle it? What do you need to do with the IMF once it's ingested? Are you editing the IMF package, or are you just storing it and needing to play back proxies of the IMF content? So there's lots of questions that we want to ask customers. I know a few of you have shown some interest, and some of your customers have shown interest. So let's get that conversation going as we get into the year, and we can then start to look to implement that.
And I guess everything depends on what the demand is. Basically, JIT in cantemo, just-in-time transcoder, playback of original files directly without a proxy. Definitely on the roadmap. Priorities depend on the needs, demand.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're not familiar with our just-in-time streaming engine does real-time playback of MXF, ProRes, JPEG 2000, XDCAM, all of those sorts of broadcast formats that don't typically play in the browser. So we're looking at implementing that streaming engine with Cantemo so that customers have the option to not necessarily need to generate proxies. It'll be a permission that they can set. So, if they have certain groups of users who might want to play back high res for perhaps QC, or they don't want to create lots of proxies from their archive, then there's the potential to use the just-in-time engine with Cantemo. So as Asmo says, it is a case of priorities. If customers show an interest in that, we may prioritize that over other features. But just-in-time is something we're gonna look to implement later in the year. IMF, those are two certainly things that we have on our roadmap currently.
What do you want to say? Something about compliance editing, most likely on the roadmap as well, or soon-ish?
With the Accurate Video Editor, which we have now, and that's replacing the old rough cut editor in Cantemo, in the same way that Accurate Video is replacing Accurate Video Validate is replacing the annotation tool. With the editor, we're looking to add some compliance functionality. So we have some customers interested in applying blur to video and audio mute for bad language. So those are features that will be coming to Accurate Video, and obviously we have tight integration between Accurate Video and Cantemo. So that's also functionality that's looking to come later in the year. Yeah, so I think that kind of covers off most of the presentation. Let me see, what else have we got? So we've covered all of those things. The other thing, of course, is we've got the shows coming up. So if you're coming to NAB in April, we look forward to seeing you. We're in the West Hall, booth 2424. So it's the same hall as Amazon Web Services. So I'm sure everyone will be wanting to come to visit that hall, and we've got a good booth there. We're partnering with our good friends at Embrace. We'll be showing their workflow orchestration and graphics automation engine with Cantemo. Of course, we'll have Cantemo 6 and Accurate Video, and we may have a few goodies that we can show you at NAB that have yet to be announced. And of course, later in the autumn, we'll have IBC as well, and we have a booth there too. So looking forward to seeing everybody there.
We have one question from Mark.
Sure.
Does your player do real reversed audio if you play backwards, or is it just a return of one frame plus play forward?
Oh, tricky questions. I believe Accurate Player will not play audio backwards.
It's going to play audio when you go single frame, so more of the latter. We don't do any audio conversion to play backwards. We kind of do what the browser allows us to do somewhat easily.
So you can step through frame by frame and get the audio popping or audio scrubbing noise. But when we come to actually playing it backwards, we can't play the audio in reverse. And you say that's a browser limitation, Asmo?
Yeah, but I don't say that with a huge confidence. I'm not the audio Accurate Player expert.
Yeah, but there's probably some good reasons why playing back audio backwards is going to be quite tricky. But as I say, you can swap it backwards. Good question, Mark.
Do we want to, again, how do you get started with Cantemo 6 if you want?
That's one for you, Asmo.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
we said we were going to post the download into our partner Slack channel, weren't we?
Yeah, that's going to happen. But then you also need the new online licenses. At the moment, you can't create those from our CCRM. So for the test license, you will contact us. We'll give you a key, which you can then because it's going to be easier because that's going to be your key going forward, a test or demo key. And then you get the download link and the string, which is your license for both Cantemo, AV products, and all the backend. And you go from there. I don't know how, Neil, you want people to contact us, but I don't know, Slack, whatever.
Or drop us an email. Old school style.
Facts.
Yeah, as Asmo said, with Cantemo 6, we're implementing online licensing. So benefits of that is much more simplified maintaining of those licenses. It will just be online activation. Anything else we want to say about licensing? I mean, I guess the previously it always required license updates. So with the online activation, that should be much smoother moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. No more sending around key files, getting those to the server.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Please write in the chat.
Yeah, apologies for the late start, but thanks for joining, everyone. We've recorded this session, so it'll be available on Catch Up. And thanks for attending. And we appreciate your input as always. And look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully at a show, or just get in touch if you have any questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, quick question. How long will version 5.x be supported?
At least 18 months from the release of 6.0, which will be 18 months from now, but we might extend that. Maybe end of next year. We have to think about that a bit. But we do see that 6.0 is like a major step, and we do know that some customers are not going to want to go Cantemo 6 at least immediately. So we do plan to have an extended support for Cantemo 5.4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it will depend on some of the back-end software and how long that can be maintained and supported, I would guess. I mean, historically, we've been very good about maintaining old versions for as long as possible. So it's probably more reliant on some of the things like Python versions, Postgres versions, Elasticsearch, things like that, in terms of when they go out of support, more than whether we'll support those versions. So, you know, it's very much about making sure we can get as many customers over to Cantemo 6 when they're ready. So there will need to be some testing, maybe a little bit some familiarization training as well. So we'll be producing some videos to show how the new UX works and the new functionality works. But yeah, I mean, we will be maintaining Cantemo 5.4.x for the foreseeable future. But I think this is a good opportunity to start thinking about that upgrade process and when your customers will be ready to upgrade. Okay. Any more questions before we head off? Thanks again for the questions. Good ones, Mattis, Mark. Thanks for your input. And we'll see you soon. Thanks.